How's it going, critter people? I hope you all are doing well. This is Zeus, and this is Paige, and the person recording is Mark. I've been working with this little guy here for a few years, him and his people. Very nice people, and Zeus has his own playlist on my channel, so if you would like to go ahead and check that out, you're more than welcome to, probably under the aggressive reactivity, where you can see some of the first videos of the first sessions that I ever met him and how crazy he was to now. Poor little guy became very reactive. He's also just very reactive to a lot of things in general. I think pretty much birds and bikes and children and squirrels and anything that moves, he would bark at. So that was kind of hard to keep him under threshold, which is what I tried to do with any dog. And they're just walking around their own neighborhood. So they had a very successful walk around their neighborhood earlier in the day. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this and show you Mr. Zeus on his nice little walk. So he has a very, very stiff tail. Oh, God, boy, he came back on his own. Very tall, stiff tail. A wagging tail can just mean that the dog is stimulated. So he sat on his own. Very good boy. So he's very stimulated, very high tail. That's a little bit of a looser wag. I like to see more of a happier wag, but... Alright, sorry, I hit the wrong button there. So he went back a little bit, but he's still walking, still tall. Somebody's coming out from behind this van with a garbage can, so that could easily be a trigger for any dog, especially this little guy, because you're coming from a blind corner. But he didn't react at all, so that's very good.
Good boy.
I'm pleasantly surprised. But you can still see his tail as it's wagging. It's still pretty stiff. That doesn't mean that he's necessarily being aggressive. It's just he's very alert. He's not really sure if this guy's like friendly or not. Goes and sniffs the trash can, very good. And especially if you can see that his tail will occasionally go in circles, that's a happy wag right there.
Be a reaction for him.
Yep, that absolutely used to be a reaction. So he's just looking around, he's sniffing. So he caught something over here on the side. This typical reaction. So here would be a moment where I would probably stop and turn around and go in the opposite direction.
That's more than he reacted this morning.
Good, very good. So Paige is, as you saw her, she bent down and she started walking backwards. It's exactly what I have done with him and I do with a lot of dogs, especially when they're reacting, because I'm trying to get them to, when we walk backwards, kind of trips them up, and mainly it just gets them, we create distance, and as they're walking backwards, it kind of, not to trick them, but it gets them a little distracted on what they're reacting to. So then when they turn to face me, because nobody wants to walk backwards, they're gonna be like, what the heck's going on, lady? And they see you and you're walking back. You're kind of trying to create a draw for them. So he's calming down now a little bit. He's still pretty excited, still pretty, he's ready to go. So I probably might have walked back a little bit further, and just stood there with him on a loose leash, to really know that, okay, we're ready to move on, because otherwise, he may still be in that excited state of mind, but he, as he shows now, he's very, very excited. He's really pulling. So if I have a dog that really digs in, then I will walk back a few more feet, and we're just going to stand there and make sure that we can stand on a loose leash. And how I do that is that, I just stand there and I bring them back just a couple of steps and I loosen. And they may go back into that, pull into the leash, and I just bring them back another step, literally one step that they take, and I loosen. And we just stand there, doing that little two-step dance, let their brain kind of calm down, and then we can move on. So it looks like he might see something over here. She walks him in the other direction, very good, and his tail kind of starts to bend a little bit more. It's not as stiff, so he's excited.
All right, now you can come back.
And they come back, and this is actually probably a good... reminder of what his threshold might be. So I, a lot of times, will tell, a lot of my clients that if I'm working with a dog that is reactive or fearful or whatever it is, if I had Zeus, even if he was doing a board and train, whatever, or he were my dog, I would walk up to wherever that threshold is. And here I would probably, if it were just me, I would say, okay, this is his threshold. So we're just going to walk up to here and we're going to turn back and go home, or whatever his threshold may be. Say it's from this house here to this yellow speed bump, the distance. and any more than that, there's just too much going on over here, then that's what we would do. We would walk up and we would walk back home, and we might turn around, come back, and do that, I don't know, 5 or 10 times. Yes, it's going to be very boring, very monotonous for the human, but dogs do best what they do most. So I'm able to practice that good calm behavior, and really engrave that, and we're able to reinforce that behavior, and reward it. I might have a couple of treats with me, or I might just, walk back and forth and let him sniff. Of course, I'd be walking by the grass. I wouldn't be walking in the street. But I'd let him sniff whatever he wants to, as long as we're not barking. If he barks, then we'll just go back, And I would do that, say we walk twice a day. We go out and do that for, 10 or 15 minutes. And I would do that for 7 days in a row, one whole week. And it's going to be so boring to the human. But if you're really able to, I tell people, real training is boring. The more you're able to reinforce the behavior you want, and still make it fun for both of you, because you're not just, okay, it's boring, we're walking here and we're turning back. You're able, you can make it fun for yourself and fun for your dog, where once you're able to go back and forth, no problem, then you can start going back and forth and waiting to see if he's going to check in on you on his own. And when he does, you can, give him a little reward or continue walking. And then you can occasionally stop and see if he stops or looks at you and ask for a sit then. So in that 7 days or even 5 days of just going to whatever distance, I want to really start there and have a really good solid foundation. And then we can start slowly increasing, another 50 feet, another 20 feet, whatever. And then I would go to that next step for the next 3 or 4 days. And I always like to say, more than you think. You're like, what? We got it done in like a session. Okay, do that session 10 times over. Not necessarily in the same day, because then both of you would not have fun. But really build on that session. That's how I would work with Zeus, honestly, and how I work with a lot of other dogs that are reactive. Just really, really build that good, strong foundation. And it's going to seem boring, but not if you look at it the right way. So he's coming back, he's exciting, and he's running, and he likes to run. He likes to, be a little crazy boy. Okay, so now we're going across the street here. He sees something else, so that tail goes up very high. She keeps moving. He's able to focus on her. Or maybe he's focusing on something up ahead.
Bird.
So he's, Mark's letting her know that there's a bird, because he's very reactive to birds and planes and anything that moves. So he's excited, so I would immediately turn around and go back. And this is kind of our red flag number 2, that, okay, we've had 2 outbursts. So then he might start, getting over threshold. And so that's where, I would just walk to the end of the previous street, the other side of this little sidewalk here, this block. And I would just walk to the end of the street and go back. And again, you're just going back and forth and back and forth. And the dog enjoys it because they get to sniff. And, again, you can still make it fun, but just create that distance. And if it seems like your dog is really, like, over it and they can do it with their eyes closed, then that's when you can move on. But you can also just work on just walking and stand time and, lots of little things in that distance. Really making sure that your dog is able to, when they can do, when you can ask them for obedience things, like sit or look at me or down or shake, even tricks, that's when you know that they can handle this environment, they're ready to move on. I would do the same thing too if I was socializing a puppy and I was going to,
birds are scary.
Birds can be very scary. But if I were taking him to a Home Depot or a pet store or something, I would take him there in the parking lot. I would go to the front door, and then I would just go around the outside of the aisles and then leave, and just do that until it's very normal and the dog is able to, like, hey, no problem, I got this. Then you can move on.
Birds are just scary.
He's scary. Birds are scary, and he's excited. So we're crossing another street, or we might be going back. Good. So when he starts to pull, Paige stops. Very good. Good.
Yes,
so
practice the loose lead on in the middle of an intersection.
So Mark's giving her a hard time. Yeah, that's true, but this is a nice little, calm, quiet neighborhood. But yes, if you're working on loose lead, that's one time where if it is a busy intersection, I would say just run for your life safely across the intersection. You can practice otherwise. That would be the one time I'd be okay with the dog pulling. But so he's going to go sniff, going to go mark. Good boy. So if he were acting like this, say in the first little bit of their stretch of their block, or just, you know, a couple houses down, say, you know, he can make it 4 houses down, but 5 houses is too much because there's too much going on, then I would just do this, you know, go back and forth those 4 houses, and he can sniff and he can enjoy himself, and you can learn to just stand there and teach him to be patient and, you know, all sorts of things. Okay, so now we have another reaction. She's going back the other direction, and with this guy, you know, he really digs in, and I think he sees a cat over here. So sometimes I have to do this with dogs where, you know, I say, okay, we just need to get them out of here, because then otherwise they're just going to go over threshold. They're going to burst a blood vessel in their eyes. You know, sometimes we just have to drag them out of there, and we say, okay, this is too far, so let's go back to the last place where it was, they were under threshold. So, you know, this is kind of like our second, I forget how many red flags. I don't know. Not as a bad thing, you know, but like maybe yellow flag to orange flag, whatever they are. Our other red flag where we say, okay, let's go back to the house and just practice there, but we want to end on a good note. So we go back to the house and we walk down those couple of houses back and forth, you know, working on just him walking, and he still gets mental stimulation, and then you can go in the house. And then next time you say, we're just going to plan to go for a short distance, but we get better results, or we get the results we want in that short distance versus going for a long walk, and we may have occasional outbursts. This is a different time of day, so you can kind of keep that in mind.
So we want to kill the cat.
He sees a cat over there he wants to kill, so, you know, high prey drive, you know, high energy. He goes over and sniffs, which is very, very good. So I would say that, you know, if he can stand here on a loose leash, I would stand here and just let him, for this moment, and everything, you know, totality of circumstances, it depends on each situation each time. I would just stand there with him on a loose leash, and he can look at the cat. If he barks, then we're going to go further back, but to try to counter condition that reaction of him really barking, I would just stand here with him for a couple seconds more. That tail is wagging a lot more loose and wiggly. That tail is wagging a lot more loose and wiggly, and I mean that it bends kind of in the middle. It's not just like stiff like this pole that just goes back and forth. You know, kind of wiggles. So I would stand there, and then I would turn back and go in the opposite direction.
I don't know, he's still looking for it.
Okay, so if he started showing, you know, even this behavior, I'm okay with him standing as long as he's not, you know, he may be kind of leaning on the leash, you know, for me, as long as he's not barking at this moment. And then over time, you can, you know, make sure that he's not pulling on the leash. And then, you know, you can make sure that he's able to sit and look at you, and, you know, so on and so forth. So you work in baby steps, you know. If he's barking and lunging and going crazy, then I just want him to be able to just stand there and not bark. And then we can have him, you know, not be trying to lunge and pull. And he can sit there nicely. And then he can, you know, even lay down or, you know, leave a treat or something, you know, be able to look at the cat and look away.
It's not there anymore. You successfully scared the beast away.
So he still thinks it's there. He's still excited. So I would definitely, you know, I would have just, you know, turned back. But so he does sit, you know, he sits on his own, because for him, usually that's another precursor or another way for him to move forward. So that's a good go-to behavior for him. In this case, yeah, it just doesn't help because he's just too over threshold. So this is actually a good time when you can use running as a bit of positive reinforcement for him, because then he sees it as it gets his attention over the cat. So he's able to run this way. I mean, you know, he has lots of energy. He runs like just a speeding bullet. You know, crazy little bullseye, and this could be a good little moment for him to just, you know, kind of get his brain back
Zeus.
again.
Hi. Hi, buddy.
A little check-in.
All right, want to try again?
So they're coming back. They're trying again. Zeus just sat on his own, but I would still say you can see his little bowed legs. He has pit bull in him. He's got his little bowed legs, a bulldog bowed legs. But, you know, so he sat as on. That's great. I'm fine with that. I personally, especially when a dog, you can tell, is over threshold like this, I don't usually ask for certain, you know, behaviors, especially when a dog is reactive. I will ask to test to see, hey, are you under threshold enough? And this would be fine if you could ask this when you're practicing, when he's not trying to stare at a cat or whatever might be over here. You know, just in my opinion. I mean, you do whatever you want, but you can use the tricks and stuff later on as a test to see, okay, can you do like a shake or something that we don't normally do in an outdoor setting or in a new setting, to see how well how comfortable the dog is what I'm trying to get to. We want to see how comfortable the dog is in the environment. Do they trust us in the environment? Are they cool with everything in the environment? Are they fully saturated, over time with everything in the environment? By that, I mean we haven't just taken them and thrown them into the lion's den and flooded them and they're like, oh my god, I'm just so panicked that now I'm not going to react to anything. But we've done it over time, that they've, been completely desensitized to everything in the environment. Now they can do, they can eat their meal, they can drink some water, they're comfortable to do all sorts of things. Okay, so here I would start walking even just a little bit further back this way, or maybe go behind the cars. And, I do realize that by pulling him away, that could cause him to react further. So, you kind of give and take. I might cause him to react by dragging him away, but, again, this is a good warning sign to say, hey, pull out a little yellow flag like they do in sports or football, I don't know. And you can say, okay, it's just too much for him, even this. Even him just staring. If he's staring at something and I can't get his attention and you're like waving your hand in front of him like, they did to Ed in The Lion King, then he's probably still too over threshold for what I would be trying to accomplish. So they try again. He immediately, he wants to go for it, so that's a little warning. Letting you know where his mind is, that he's ready to go. So we expect that to happen if we're working on loose leash, or if we have, distractions. We expect for him to just pull right away. However, in this moment, I may think that I'm trying to teach a dog loose leash, but really I need to work on a distraction. So always be flexible with your dog when you're working with your dog, because they decide and they dictate what you work on in that moment, and it always changes. So again, I may think that I'm trying to desensitize a dog, but really I need to teach them, or I'm trying to socialize a dog, to new people, but really they end up being afraid. So I work on desensitizing, or I'm trying to take a dog for their first walk and they're terrified of the leash. So then we have to work on that. So be flexible. Don't, let your mind get stuck in a one-track mind, where, by the end of this, we're gonna, like Joel Beckman, by the end of this video, we're gonna stop this dog pulling no matter what I have to do. And it's just nonsense. So, I'll get off my tangent on Joel. All my regular subscribers know that I hate him, but anyway, so what I'm trying to say is be flexible with, and really kind of look at things from a dog's point of view. Really need to think like a dog. Okay, is this too much for me? Am I, too over threshold, or am I able to do this, or do I want to do this? Put yourself in your dog's shoes. Okay, so he was sitting because he was trying to please, and so he starts moving him backwards. Perfect. So then I would just start moving back. And a lot of times when I'm working with dogs, I don't say anything. I don't ask for, like I said earlier, I don't ask for behaviors. And if I say their name, it's to test to see if I can get their attention. If I can't get their attention by saying like Zeus once or twice, then I say, okay, we're over threshold. At this point, I don't think he's ready for a sit or even his name, so, and then that's where I try to, I only save my voice for like praising, or marking behavior, like yes, or just talking to them. Like I definitely talk to the dogs I work with, just telling them how cute they are, or like, oh, look at this or that, some people say I talk too much, but I like to let them know when they're doing well. And then if we get to a point where, say he's barking like this, I might tell him, if he's staring at something, I might say like easy, where I just instinctively, I just say that to kind of, put like a yellow light out, for the dog, kind of warn them like, hey, relax before you go over threshold. And then if we do, then we just turn around. I don't say anything. I don't say no. I don't, say whatever. I don't call their name. I just turn around, go the opposite direction. And then as soon as they start following me, I say, good job, let's go, yes. So he's asking for a sit. A lot of people do that to get the, I don't know, I guess everybody has their own reason for it. They might be trying to reset Zeus's brain, and thinking, okay, now you're facing the opposite direction. We're able to do obedience. To me, this doesn't seem like he's necessarily under threshold enough to be comfortable in a sit, but he's trying to please his owners. His owners say sit, so he sits, because he's just used to that. As we've seen earlier, he would sit to continue the walk, so maybe he thinks, oh, if I sit, I get to continue my walk. But this here, I would say, could lead to more frustration. He's already frustrated because, he's just had a few blow-ups, and now we're kind of we kind of lost the dog, I'll say, where we're in hindbrain, just strictly reactive, and we're all over the place. We see a squirrel and we chase it, versus front brain where we're actually able to think and whatnot. And that's where it can be helpful when you just walk and do repetitive behaviors, or repeat the same lesson, walking the first 4 houses down the block, back and forth. Then you can start asking for, then you'll have your dog's front brain, where your dog is thinking, they're focused on you, they can sit when you ask sit, they can shake paws, they can go down, and they're still focused on you because they're comfortable in their environment.
Zeus? Zeus.
Okay, so this is a good moment to let you know that, okay, he's over threshold, so you called his name twice. He kind of looked, but he's like, whoa, something's over here. His ears are forward, his tiny, cute little floppy ears are forward. So this is like, okay, this is a moment where instead of repeating, like the cue, like even his name, which can be used as a look cue, I would move over to, sorry, I hit the wrong button. So he sat because that's, he's trying. He's like, oh, usually this is what I do. That's what we're waiting for. So he's still kind of over threshold to where he's not able to look at you. He doesn't want to take his eyes off of whatever he's looking at over here to his owner. So again, even this is over threshold for, what I would consider over threshold. And so I would move to the left side of him or to the right side just to get into the corner of his eyesight. So I might move this way, although if you don't want to go in the street, you can move this way. And as soon as he looks at me in the corner of his eyesight, then I would start backing up and walking backwards like you saw Paige do earlier in the video. And this is, again, he's tired. He could be frustrated.
Zeus.
Okay, so he's way too focused over here. And so by repeating the cue, you can kind of, the dog becomes numb to it. They learn to ignore it. You can always change the cue. You can even use the same cue, his name, and just pair it with something really, really high value when he's below threshold. And then make sure that you only use it just like the word COME or whatever you use as your recall word. I don't use that, or even sit. If I said sit and he wasn't sitting, then I would say, okay, I need to work on this behavior more in an environment where he's comfortable to practice it. Even if he knows it, in this environment he's too distracted to, or he doesn't feel comfortable to sit, or something for that. Just for example.
I'm here. Zeus.
Okay, so he was still a little over threshold, a little distracted. I'm not sure what he was looking at over there, but he seems bound and determined to investigate. So they're just about home. Tail, you can see that tail kind of going up a little bit, getting a little bit, but I think they're just about home. So that could be where the excitement is coming from. But overall, this was a really good, really good video, especially the end there. Love how calm Zeus was able to be. It's a process, not an event. I'm not acting like I'm perfect by any means. I make mistakes all the time. I just went to go look at my Shiba, who's I make mistakes all the time with my own Shiba, and sometimes with clients' dogs. But the best thing you can do is just learn from it. I love when I can learn from something. It doesn't mean that everything I talk about or criticize, it doesn't mean that you're a bad pet owner or a bad trainer or a bad person by any means. It's just an opportunity for you to kind of look at it from another point of view, an outsider's point of view, and improve on it if you wish to, or don't improve on it if you don't wish to. Like with Joel Beckman, I'm not hating on him just to hate on him as a personal vendetta. It's because he chooses not to learn. He chooses not to learn. Mark and Paige have learned so much, and I have no doubt they will continue to grow and learn and expand their knowledge of dogs, and other animals possibly for the future. So that'll do it for this video. Thanks so much, Mark and Paige, for trusting me and working with me and putting up with my my positive nonsense for all these years. You guys are amazing. Love you guys. Love all my subscribers. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you think of this video. And in the meantime, go give your critters some kind of loving that they enjoy. Say howdy do for me. And until next time, stay positive.